I mean, also, does that mean you should go crazy risk? I don't think so. We're off with the moves, though, so here we go.
Is it crazy?
Yet to be seen. Duda will have something to say about that, maybe.
I have seen him play H4 in that position, but he didn't play it. We have a Grunfeld instead.
Okay.
So.
A mainline Grunfeld defence, and we haven't seen too much of the Grunfeld defence lately, among these guys at least, in the Oslo Esports Cup, but it is a very counter-attacking opening. I haven't seen Duda play this too often, and I feel like Duda is hiding opening preparation for the candidates later this summer. And Pragg has great memories in this type of opening. I've seen him win actually quite a few games lately, Pragg on the white side of this position. So the Grunfeld defence, white gets the centre with pawns, black tries to chip away at the centre from afar. Black also the first to castle. Look at the black bishop in front of the black king. That is a great piece on the long diagonal. Simon, we've even had the position against each other.
I know, yeah.
Really?
I've had this exact position on the white side, and David's had it on the black side. David's a big Grunfeld player, and I quite like the centre and trying to build up an attack from the centre. I think I've pushed the H-pawn by now, though, probably when I've played you, David. But this is one of the sort of modern lines, isn't it, where black just keeps tension. And here, grabbing the pawn, again, an idea which has been played quite commonly.
Yeah, so Duda's previous move, the last move, allowing white to grab a pawn like this, isn't necessarily the most popular way of playing, but it's quite trendy, as you mentioned there, Simon. It's come into fashion lately. And white is one pawn up now, but white's pawns on the c-file, they are doubled. White has a lot of weaknesses long term, so there's compensation, and Duda, he's going after some of white's weak pawns with the black queen. Look how Duda, he's looking off to his left. It's our right on the screen, but when a player looks off to their left, it means they're trying to remember something. Yeah. That means he's studied this before, he's just trying to recall what the computer said.
And Pragg, he's just simply in his own theory. He's studied this before, he knows exactly what to do, so he's simply waiting for Duda's response. Do you also feel a jolt of joy when you get your opening preparation in?
I mean, it happens so rarely that I don't get that joy much, but it's so nice. I mean, I think I played a tournament recently in Reykjavik, and in one game out of 9, I got my preparation in, and it was such a nice relief, because you're suddenly like, oh, the stress is off. I've put this on the computer. I know my position is OK. You can relax a little bit more, and your opponent has to start sweating. But here, Pragg clearly in his prep still, yeah?
Yeah, it's
What do you mean by getting your opening prep in? What happens with that?
Well, basically, you've studied that position at home, and
so basically the opponent does what you have prepared,
exactly,
and what you're hoping he will do.
Exactly, and usually, you feel a great sense of relief, because you're like, hey, I know what to do, and you don't. And that, of course, gives a lot of pleasure. I have to admit, sometimes it doesn't give me so much pleasure to get my opening preparation in, when I know that the opening line is like several moves long, and I can't remember beyond a certain point. Then I'm like, oh, I really hope that they don't just somehow find the good moves. Then it becomes a little bit stressful.
All right. Well, in this one, we're wondering if Pragg has gotten his opening prep in. He is in Oslo with his coach, Ramesh, and that must be nice at this point, David, after losing a game, to go back to his lounge, meet Ramesh, and maybe forget about that first game.
Exactly. Ramesh is one of the best chess coaches out there in the world. He's so experienced, especially with the younger players, coaching them. And Ramesh, he will have been full of words of wisdom, helping maybe Pragg just stay calm, focus on the next game. Maybe they've discussed this exact position together as well. If not for Duda, then for sure in a previous game. And look at that. Duda spent 2 minutes or so thinking about black's move. Pragg reacted instantly. We talk about prep, being prepared, predicting the opponent's moves, and Pragg's done that.
Yeah. This is a pawn sacrifice.
It is.
And it must be Pragg, because Duda's taken the pawn immediately.
Yeah, and has been played before, and there you can see black moves forward with the queen, but that doesn't matter, because Pragg has it all under control. He's looked at this before, and he slides his rook over 2 squares to support the pawn. And here, there haven't been too many games, I have to say, only 2, and black has actually developed a light squared bishop 1 square in that game.
OK. And that's a very typical move here, very standard move. You need to connect your rooks. This rook especially is the worst placed piece on the board, the only piece which hasn't really moved. So by moving your bishop forward, you connect your rooks, maybe get ready to centralize here later on. Simon, you mentioned the word pawn sacrifice. I guess in the current position, yes, white gave away a central pawn, but still white does have these 2 pawns. So it's level material for now. It's just surprising that white gave up this really key central pawn, right? I guess black had to lose a lot of time with the queen now having moved 1, 2, 3, 4 times already in the game in the first 15 moves.
And I think after maybe a potential rook lift by white, because you've got to look at your opponent's queen and you're thinking that queen's really annoying. When anyone moves a piece into your half, try to kick it away. And as David is demonstrating there, that rook coming up the board would again kick the queen away, probably to the queen side. So the black queen now is in danger because if the bishop moves, there'd be a nasty attack. Again, that black queen probably wants to get out of the danger, so it has to go all the way back away from the side of the board where I feel there could be a bit of action. Because if you look at white's pieces, white's light square bishop, I know there's pawns in the way, but it's pointing directly at black's king. And at some point, there might be a move like pawn to f5, this move here to open up lines. And with black's pieces on the other side of the board, you should be looking at these kind of ideas just to open up the position, just to attack. I don't know if it works here, but this is the kind of idea which is key to look at. Force your opponent's pieces away from the king, attack the king. And this would seem pretty natural.
Yeah. Looks very scary there for black, that type of thing happening. And maybe that's why Duda's hesitating. Also, it's a psychological blow. When you're at move 16 now, and you know your opponent has played instantly every single move. Pragg has gained 2 minutes from when he started the game. So Duda, maybe inside, he's trying to keep calm, but he's trying not to panic at the same time. So, yeah, it's looking like this type of idea for white, maybe in the air. Maybe this one, Simon, as well. Your favourite later, just
I like
playing
that one.
against the black king.
Definitely.
It's shaping up to be an exciting game.
Cool. We like to hear that. I just noticed the bar in game 2 with Liam Le and Anish Giri has already shot up for Liam Le. And apparently Anish Giri is shaking his head. Has he made a blunder in that game? Look at Anish Giri. This is after only 7-8 minutes of that game.
I'm not sure about a blunder, but something odd has happened for Anish. I have a feeling later he's going to say it was a mouse slip. But he castled the... OK, he's laughing there, Anish Giri. He castled the black king towards the queen side, where it's probably going to just get checkmated. So he's just walked into what's going to happen. It's something bad that's going to happen soon. I just have a feeling he meant to move the black rook instead of his king.
He's got to get used to the mouse, hasn't he? He's really struggling with his mouse movements, you know. I mean, Lawrence Trent, who we got in the studio, was mentioning he plays a lot online and he got repetitive wrist syndrome, I guess from practicing online. But I think it's something you have to be careful of. I don't know the technical term of it, but again, moving that mouse, Anish is struggling with it, blundering a lot.
You need that. You need to get into the connection of playing online chess, and even basic things such as, like Simon says, moving the mouse, getting accustomed to when you pre-move, and again, also coping with the fact that the board is in 2D as opposed to its usual 3D when you're playing over the board. So, Anish does have great support. He has a fantastic second here with him, Owen Lamy, and as we've seen time and time again, it's very, very important to have the right network behind you. And, well...
for Anish, but what's happening here?
Yeah, just the move we expected for black from Duda, and Pragg reacting instantly again. He's played 17 moves in a row instantly.
Wow.
He's just improved the white queen, actually getting ready for something similar to what Simon showed. Just he's getting ready to bring one of the rooks across to challenge and kick away the black queen out of his half of the board.
All right. Pragg, he is under pressure. He lost game 1, and chasing him from behind is Magnus Carlsen. He is playing a match against Erik Hansen. Magnus, he won game 1, and let's hear what Magnus and Erik said after that first game.
Magnus, good start today. You win the first game, and do you still eye the tournament championship now?
Yeah, I said many years ago that as long as it's theoretically possible, then I always try to win the tournament. So as far as I can tell, it's still theoretically possible.
And how do you feel physically today?
A bit better than the 2 days before.
Perhaps most importantly, how do you view Real Madrid's chances in the second game against Manchester City?
About the same as before the first game.
Good luck in both this tournament and that rematch.
Yeah, thank you.
Eric, you start out in a tough way against Carlsen. How are you going to get back into this match?
I have no idea. I'm blundering everything. I don't even know what's wrong with me right now. Like last few days, in about 1 or 2 games each day, I'm making some of the worst moves like possible. Like this was just embarrassing. I don't know. I don't have any words, to be honest. I can't explain a couple of the moves I've been making, and they're game losing. I'm making moves that I know are bad. I don't know what's up with me right now. But that was one of the worst games I've ever played.
It's perhaps hard for us who do not play chess on that level, but when you go through those kind of moves in your head in advance, is it an instinctual move that you feel go wrong, or is it a calculation-wise where you feel you get lost in it somehow?
It's a calculation thing, but something's off with my intuition as well. But, you know, just a couple of times I meant to play something and I played something different. I don't know how to explain it, but these are like game-losing mistakes that you just can't afford to lose concentration or get your lines mixed up in your head. So I really don't know how to explain it, but I'm not really playing what I mean to play in some situations, and it's costing me.
Can it sometimes be easier to get out of that funk by starting up one game down and maybe freeing up a little bit in your game style?
No. I mean, you still need wind, you still need confidence, and I mean, I've lost like 2 or 3 days in a row, so at this point, even a draw is usually a positive sign. It means I didn't blunder too much, but can't even get something like that. I mean, these are some horrible games that I'm playing.
Thank you for taking the time, though, Eric.
Yeah. Thanks.
Eric Hansen, he is actually super frustrated, even if he is facing the world champion today. He did win his match against Mamadjaro a few days ago, but other than that, he has lost all his matches. Hard to hear Eric be this frustrated.
Yeah, it's hard to hear, and these days we're used to players being quite open and honest, but again, that's one side that they don't talk about so much, is the mental health and the toll it takes on you playing such intense chess, high-pressure chess, day in, day out. And Eric, he talked about that mental health aspect on our podcast, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to see him struggle so much here. I mean, he had one win early in the tournament, he was so happy, but that's the problem with chess. Every single defeat takes so much out of you, can really knock the confidence, and yeah, you got to feel for him. And
that podcast, the late night show with Eric Hansen as a special guest, will be released tomorrow, a special video edition to all Chess24 premium users. Other than that, the podcast is available wherever you listen to your podcast. But mental health then will be a big theme in that podcast.
Yeah, and Eric, the reason, or one of the reasons he's so well known as a streamer is because he decided to turn his back on professional chess and just playing tournaments, living out of a suitcase, because the pressure is so much and it's so hard to make a living, so hard to keep going, motivating yourself, picking yourself up from defeats. And yeah, I mean, it's been tough for Eric. He's just come up against some of the best players in the world, and he hasn't played that badly. I mean, of course, he's going to be harsh with himself. You always are when you lose, but he hasn't played that badly. It's just, in situations like this, it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the same. I mean, it's actually quite sad because he's been so happy throughout the tournament so far. Every interview, he's been upbeat, even when he's lost. And that interview, it's like, wow, it's turnaround. It's actually probably his real emotions in some respects. It's very easy to hide them, but it's really painful losing, and it's so important to you know, to refocus for him and just remember, like, so many other good things going on. But yeah, we should all send him a lot of love and hope he gets. Hopefully, he'll take Magnus down now. Take him down, Eric.
Yeah.
For the boys, does he say? For the boys.
It was quite hard actually hearing that interview and just hearing the raw emotion. But one thing he doesn't have to worry about is that he still has the love, admiration, and respect from everyone who's cheering for him, because, you know, we are asking, who are you rooting for and why? And I can tell you a lot of answers. A lot of viewers are cheering for Eric. And you know, they're saying Canada is proud of you, Eric. We love seeing you shake up these world players. And okay, yeah, I mean, it's difficult. It's hard to suffer these defeats time and time again. But I do hope that he does go onto Twitter at some point, reads these messages of support and feel some motivation, or just think about them. And then when he sits down at the computer and he gets ready to play the next game, that he can just smile and just enjoy the game.
Yeah, send him some love, you guys. Eric Hansen, he needs it. What a great player and what a great person, what a great streamer he is. He needs the love, and I bet everyone cheering for Pragg in the tournament is also hoping Eric will do good against Magnus today. Pragg is down by 1 point against Duda, and with the white pieces here, do you see chances for Pragg to win this game, David?
Definite chances for Pragg. It's a really imbalanced position. We talked about the pawn structure earlier. It's a bit of a weird pawn structure. Pragg, long term, not doing well because white has double pawns, shattered pawns on the left half. But he's so active, Pragg. Really nice centralized pieces. I like where white's bishops are right now. It's all about whether he can attack. And for the first real time in the game, Pragg is thinking. He's got a 6-minute time advantage, and I think the next 2 or 3 moves are critical. He's played great up to this point, of course, with the help of his opening preparation, but it's about whether he can back it up. If he can get an attack, I think Pragg is a big favourite. But if he can't whip up some kind of energy, some kind of activity now on the next few moves, then it's all going to turn in Duda's favour.
Yeah, I mean, we could look at a couple of moves on the analysis board, and the first very obvious move, which I think we're probably all thinking of, I'd imagine, is just looking at the aspects of the position. We talked about the black queen going to the other side of the board. Look at the king. The black king is defended by 1 piece. It's only defended by the bishop in front of it. So when you're trying to start an attack, you've got to try and look at the defenders and remove those defenders. So a logical move here would be to just push the bishop into the centre and try to get rid of the dark square bishops, remove the last defender of black's king, and then you can think about getting your other pieces into the attack, maybe with that sacrifice we talked about earlier, or maybe even by using the h-pawn, as David pointing out. But this seems like a very sensible way to start. Get rid of that defender and then just throw everything at the black king, because it has no pieces around it supporting it. So that would be certainly what I'd be thinking here, and I'd be very... well, I'm always totally overconfident when I'm attacking. It's a big mistake, probably, but I'd be really happy here. And I think when you get that happiness in your position, you play better in some respects as well. You get, you know, that confidence helps a lot. But yeah, that looks like a sensible move, doesn't it?
I think it's the first move that came to my mind as well. And you're right there. If you like the position, if you understand it, then you always play better. You can play quicker as well because of the confidence you get. And it's not just the fact that this is a good attacking move, trying to remove black's best defender, but also it's a good strategic move. So if black ever takes your bishop, then suddenly you can correct the fact that you have doubled pawns, which is never comfortable. You can correct that by playing pawn takes bishop, suddenly connecting your pawns up again. And as Simon mentioned, once that black bishop disappears, so many weaknesses around the black king, you could easily imagine the white knight suddenly jumping into some holes. So yeah, that's the move I would choose as well. Pragg, he's spent 4 minutes now.
This is a problem he's having. Maybe. Yeah, so his time management has been a little bit dodgy. So yeah, but it just seems such a natural move. I don't even know why you're thinking about playing anything else here. Get rid, and he's played it, but taking that long to play that move just seems a bit odd when that's nearly a third of your time.
I notice it's a trend though. Normally, even the best prepared players in the world, those who know their openings better than anyone else, normally as soon as they meet their first move they don't know or that they don't recognise, they always spend a long, long time just to kind of get into the game. Because Pragg, basically, he hasn't played any moves himself up to that point, so maybe it's the first move he's on his own where he hasn't kind of had the computer or his coach's help studying beforehand. So, yeah, maybe just on fresh terms, he was just kind of trying to get into the game, into the position.
I mean, there's some F5 next to me looks like it could well be a threat. Yeah. This is pushing the pawn in front of the queen, because now you just got to open those lines. You've got to calculate these things very carefully, but there's one really interesting line I can see. OK, he's taken that one, as David pointed out, but this also seems a bit strange because, as David said, white's pawns become better now. Yeah. They undouble. and they become friends, and they can hold hands and jump on each other's cars, wasn't it, that scene from In Between Us?
Yeah, not my friend. I'm also a little bit puzzled by that decision as well, because White can even start thinking about taking radical measures,
go
right?
for it. Push the pawn.
Push the pawn. Explode it open. Create a revolution. And presumably, I mean, Duda is counting on the fact that that queen tucked away on a6. If the revolution happens and White just launches the pawn forward, the queen can maybe get to some squares safely.
Yeah, maybe she can defend her king later on, but as Simon says, it looks super scary. OK, I'm surprised Pragg didn't push this pawn forward. Instead...
Ooh, sorry.
Simon unhappy.
Oh, dear.
Instead, he moved his rook, which was attacked, so taking the safe option. And now Duda, he was so scared of this idea, exploding open lines towards the black king, that he decided to stop it. He pushed the pawn himself. This is very, very weakening for black, but I think it was essential to stop White's pawn pushing forward, also taking away this key square for the white knight, the black pawn now preventing that.
So why is it weakening?
It's weakening because look at the black king now. It's always weakening to push pawns in front of it, and here black has pushed 2 pawns in front of his king.
They're like your bodyguards, aren't they? You know, your pawns are like your personal bodyguards that protect you, and when your bodyguards are running away, it leaves you open. But I don't know. I mean, Pragg's decision. I mean, I would have liked to have seen that f-pawn push and just some crazy attack going.
Yeah, it's still looking good for Pragg. We should mention he's got complete control of the dark squares, especially in the centre. These pawns are actually really strong, just stopping black from pushing any pawns. But suddenly, Pragg has a dilemma. How does he activate his knight? His knight has lost access to these key central squares, and also his bishop. If he tries to improve it, if he tries to bring it opposite the black king, then it just gets traded off for the black knight. So he still needs to solve that issue, how to improve this piece, maybe improve the queen as well at some point. It's looking very good for Pragg long-term, but short-term, some questions to answer.
I'm going to try to see if I've learned anything now, David. So for Duda now.
Yes.
His king is on one side and all his pieces on the other side. Is that a big problem for him?
Yes. That's
Good.
a big problem for black. And that's why Pragg, if he can, I mean, that's why Simon wanted to break through and sacrifice, open up the black king while the black pieces were offside.
I mean, I still do, David. I mean, I'm thinking a very natural idea would be to push the pawn in the centre here. I mean, I don't know if I can back it up with anything, but something like this is trying to open up more lines.
For example, if I capture you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I wanted to try something on f5, but we don't quite have enough, I feel, for this.
But this is the type of idea, right? Yeah. And this shows Kaya's point as well. Yes, you might have sacrificed a piece here for white, but suddenly the black king is completely open, completely naked, lost all of its bodyguards, and suddenly the white knight, on f5, where it always thrives, and the white queen about to sneak in with some sneaky threats. Oof, all of these pieces are on the wrong side of the board right now. So this type of thing is going through Pragg's mind for sure. I have a sneaky feeling he's looking at this move. You can see Pragg kind of leaning forward. OK, he chooses another attacking move.
Always a good move, David. Yeah. Always a good move.
Harry on the run.
Yeah.
Get ready to soften up the right side of the board. And Duda quickly moving his rook in the centre. I mean, he's getting ready just to initiate his counterplay there. You know, I guess he has to. I mean, after all, he just has to wait for whatever Pragg has in store for him on the right. And the rules do say, they're very clear, although there's always exceptions to the rule, that if your opponent works on the side of the board, you should work on the centre.
Yeah. So you guys are liking it for Pragg right now?
I'm liking it for Pragg, but the next few moves still critical. It's just about whether he can improve the white knight, the white bishop, whether he can break through to the black king, because those 3 black pieces on the wrong side of the board that we highlighted, if they gravitate towards the centre, suddenly black might be doing quite well. So it's just about timing. If he can't find anything in the next 3 moves, then the black pieces have time to centralise and Duda will be completely fine. But if he finds something now on the next 2 moves, Pragg, there won't be time for black's pieces to rejoin the battle.
I mean, for me, the critical piece is the white knight. It has no purpose whatsoever at the minute. And yeah, I like just visualising it, I'm just like, wow, I would love that it could move diagonally in front of his pawns and just plonk it in the e5 square where it's supported by 2 of its pawns. I'd love that. Or maybe just anywhere on the dark squares, basically.
So if you talk to the white knight right now, because you guys have taught me, talk to your pieces and ask it, where do you want to be? Where does that white knight want to be?
on the e5 square that Jovanka mentioned. The white knight, we talk about knights in general, and this is something Jovanka taught me, a phrase I'd never ever heard before until I joined the tour, an octo knight. And a knight in the center of the board is called an octo knight because it controls 8 squares. It's like an octopus with 8 legs. The knight here does not control 8 squares. It doesn't control, I mean, there's no line after the H line, so it doesn't control one side of the board. That's why we say don't put your knights on the side. Here, the white knight's okay. The black knight is properly on the side of the board, but either way, both of them want to be centralized. Both of them could be improved. So first, both sides taking a time out to improve their rooks instead.
But how can Pragg get that white knight to that dream square?
This is the problem.
It's actually a really good training question as well. And, you know, often I say when I used to do coaching is if you could just remove the knight from the board or you just trace the sort of route. So you can see which square you want to put it on and you just try to find the quickest route for the knight to get there. And this is how people work out maneuvers, basically. It's how you maneuver in chess, you know, by just taking it off the board and working back. But it's really hard to get it to that square. And you've got to think about timing, and you don't really have enough timing here.
Let's put your 3 genius minds together.
How can we get to the square? The problem is you want to use this square, and then, as Simon said, you want to trace your way. You want to go 1, 2, 3. Oh, whoops, not there. There, sorry. 1, 2, 3 into the center.
And a niche mouse slip there.
Yeah, mouse slip. So here you're 3 squares away from getting to the center, but the problem is after one move, you get stopped. Immediately, you'll get traded off by this black bishop. And suddenly, no more knight, no more dream square for it in the middle of the board. So if you can't use this square, how do you ever get to the middle? You need, for example, maybe to go backwards, the only square you can't be captured, but you don't want to put a knight in the corner. Then you need another move, for example, if black just waits. You need another move to get your queen out of the way. You need another move to bring your knight forward. But still, how do you get to the square? Anytime you march forward and try to get there, you just get traded off by the black bishop.
This is very famous Nimzovich maneuver, actually. He did something similar like this. He came to h3, g5, and around that in one of his games. But it's lovely when you can move the knight back to get in the position. But again, you've got to work out if you have the time to do that. And black has this pressure in the centre now, so I just don't think you have the time to.
But does he have any moves to get that black light squared bishop out of the way, which seems to be the problem, to get the knight there?
This is also another solution that you can approach. You say, problem, that light squared bishop, therefore, get rid of it. I like the way you're thinking.
Yeah, so how about pushing the A pawn, for example?
Oh, I like the way you think.
Great move.
Good. Great move. This is really good stuff. It's the same.
Yeah, imagine if he plays it now, which he might, because it's very logical.
Kai, you get a high five from me. This is brilliant,
The one downside, if the black bishop goes back this way, you're very happy because now the white knight can start to reroute itself and it can't get captured. But the problem is the black bishop might just keep itself on this diagonal and the white knight still can't use that square. So still a bit tricky. That's why Pragg hasn't pushed his pawn yet. This pawn push that I think we all want to see now after Kaya has suggested it.
Definitely, This is the move we're cheering
I'm exhausted now thinking about all these moves. It's tiring to be a chess player.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going through Pragg's mind as well. I have a feeling he's going to either push Alice, the A-pawn, or push Harry, the H-pawn. He's going to play on one of the flanks.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, mentioning the tiredness thing, this is something that all chess players are, it's really hard because, you can imagine at home, if you haven't played in a tournament, doing the hardest exam of your life, but you're doing it potentially, these guys, for 4 or 5 hours each day. And they can't make mistakes. They've got to stay concentrating. You're doing that every day. And the mental fatigue that you can get from it is extreme. We've all done that in tournaments where we've played for like 10 days on the row. David has the longest games as well. He'd be the last person to finish at the same time. Oh, OK. I think he pushed the wrong pawn.
No, this is
either very good or I was about to say either very good or very, very bad. So white's pushed that pawn to try and break the connection with black's queen on the 6th rank. So actually, again, we got to show this because Pragg, he's trying to go for what we call a genius move, but it might backfire. So he's pushed his pawn forward. It can actually be captured in 4 different ways, this pawn. But if it gets captured by the black queen, in order for the black queen to keep in contact with this pawn, then suddenly disaster for black. Note how the white rook stands opposite the queen, so the white bishop will jump out of the way, take a pawn, attacking the queen, and about to win more pawns on the next go. Black is doomed here. So black cannot capture this pawn with the queen. That's one trap that Pragg has set for Duda. But if Duda, for example, takes in a more natural way, maybe centralizing the knight, we've been talking about knights a lot, then after white takes this pawn with the white rook, maybe there's just going to be simple moves. Maybe black can take this pawn. Maybe black can take this pawn with the black queen. And, okay, we're going to see this. And the black queen attacks this rook. I'm not sure Pragg is quite in time to break through to the black king. There's no time for the white bishop to enter this diagonal anymore towards the black king because the black queen controls so many squares. And I think this move actually may be key for Duda. If you take in the center of the board with the black rook, I think Simon's ideas are coming to play. There will be a sacrifice on this square. I'm not sure which way white should take, but suddenly the black king comes under massive pressure. So that's the move we're looking for.
Taking the pawn with the queen seems like such a strong idea. You're combining attack with defense. You're attacking, you're winning a pawn, but you're bringing your queen back to defend as well, and you're stopping white's light square bishop getting to this key square. That unless white's got a big blow here, and white really needs to have a big blow if Duda does take the pawn, and I can't see it because just not. I mean, you're not quite there. Black's got that rook defending, and I can't see
it too slow. I think. I mean, you would love to, for example, plant your queen in the centre, defend your rook, and also line up to put your bishop on this diagonal. But the problem is you're one move too slow, and in some variations, I think black can maybe just take your pawn, attacking the bishop, attacking the rook, and yes, white can give some checks. Maybe this is what Pragg is relying on, but the black king can just move maybe, and I'm not sure there's a follow-up. Very complicated still, though. I'm not going to write it off right now yet, at least for Pragg. I think he's got chances.
Okay, wow, dramatic. He did lose the first game, Pragg. That would be very dramatic if he loses game 2 as well.
Okay, and he has taken the pawn with his queen. You know, he has shown that he has ice water in his veins. I mean, it's so well calculated, though, because when you're objective about it, you're like, yeah, okay, it's just a rook. Yes, I can hide my king. But emotionally, it feels scary. It really does. You know, the
Duda,
checks definitely, because you know the checks that you highlighted, it looked wild, and it's never ever comfortable playing when your opponent is attacking your king and your king is also open.
It's going to be very interesting as well. I mean, if we think about the match situation and the tournament situation, if Pragg, he may well lose this match. Duda's won the first game, and Magnus may well win that match. So how's that going to affect things? Does that mean Magnus overtakes Pragg then, going into the last round? But of course, they'll all be down to their individual encounters, and I'm just trying to work out who Magnus is playing in the last round.
Mamedyarov.
Which he has got a very good score against, but Mamedyarov is so unpredictable.
I know.
If you get him on his day, he can crush everyone. So, you know, it will come down to the last day, which is great. We want that.
And in the tour finals, right? Magnus played Mamedyarov, and Mamedyarov won all his white games and took it to blitz tiebreaks.
That's true. So very
7
exciting.
white wins in a row in that.
It was. I went all the way to Armageddon, right?
And speaking of Mamedyarov, he loses game 2 here to Jordan van Foreest. And the first game, I'm forgetting how that ended.
I think it was.
We all?
I think it was a draw.
The first one was a draw. All right, so that means Jordan is in the lead in this match. And Mamedyarov has to make a comeback in game 3 or 4 to take it to tiebreaks. Tomorrow, he will face Magnus Carlsen in a match that could be deciding for the whole tournament.
Yeah, I mean, this position, though, is so crazy. The more I look at it, the more I think it's actually very difficult for Duda. And maybe we can get Stockfish the suggestions from the computer. I don't know if that's possible. There we go. OK, Black only has 2 moves to keep the advantage. One of them I showed, the Black Knight, jumping into the centre. That has been played by Duda. Unfortunately for Pragg, that was maybe the most obvious move in the position. It does look good for Black, but there are some checks. White's rook is going to come up the board with a check. And actually, after being given more time, the evaluation bar not so clear. So the computer even changing its mind. White giving a check. I don't think you can touch this rook as Black. If you take this rook off the board, you might be in big trouble. You have to move your king towards the centre. Rook takes rook would have been met by the white queen zooming up. And it's still very complicated.
Yeah, sorry, David. I mean, I guess the key move here is if White can bring his other rook on that open e file. If this move works, then I mean, even the computer, whatever the computer say.
Well, yeah, what's happening here with the computer?
Well, I mean, I think if Pragg's done this, maybe he's outdone the computer. Is that possible?
Because, I think the computer, the longer it looks at it, the longer it it kind of studies the position, the more it favours white. And maybe we can get the computer moves up again just before we jump into the position. Because what does the computer want to do? And Simon, you're right. White only has one move to stay in the game. Everything else is pretty much hopeless for Pragg. But it is the move you suggested, Simon, and Pragg should find this. It's findable even with 1.5 minutes on the clock. Pragg, he looked down at the white rook a second ago. Let's jump in. Let's show what he has to find. Pragg, is he going to play it? He's got to bring his white rook, this rook that's not in the game, he's got to bring it into the attack. Rook to the E1 square, as the computer shows us. Look at this teamwork. 3 heavy pieces, 3 major pieces on the open file. The problem is you've got to see that you can give away this bishop. You can actually give this bishop away for free, because here you can check the black king, and there's nowhere to hide for the black king. The black rook, if it trades, then suddenly this is a check and a double attack. Black's king is actually going to run into some checkmates here. The black king just too exposed. So this is the key move he has to find, Pragg. It's not 100% easy, but he should really find it. And
he has under a minute, though.
He'll find it.
He will find it. He's so calm. He practiced on calculation and tactics. Think so. I mean,
He'll find it.
You can see his screen. Is it possible to see what kind of pieces he's highlighting?
Let's maybe go back to his screen here. He hasn't clicked on a piece. His mouse is at his kind of cursor is at the top of the screen.
Oh, and that would be a losing move if he
plays a losing
doesn't
move.
find it.
Oh dear, how
Surprising.
It's really surprising. It's so natural to bring the other rook in. I mean, I think there was at least some perpetual draw ideas. I mean, draw ideas for that. But now, this is too passive. You've got no attack here. You're 2 pawns down.
He wants to open up the white rook now. We mentioned bringing it across the board a couple of moves ago was the key move. He wants to open up the white rook now to jump to the 7th rank. So there is some idea behind his last couple of moves, but as Simon mentioned, it's passive, and the black queen now has the luxury of a move to just jump back to the defence. I'm expecting the black queen to go the whole way back on the diagonal, actually as close to her king as possible, and offer a trade there. If the queens come off, black should be winning. Black has 2 extra pawns. Yeah, it looks like the momentum is gone now for Pragg. Trading pieces when you're attacking, it's such a common mistake.
And I think it's that rule, isn't it? I mean, when you're attacking, it was kind of a do or die situation because you're 2 pawns down, you're probably losing more material. You just need to get more pieces in the attack. Sometimes it's as simple as that. And that line that Pragg missed, it was simply get another rook in the attack. And now there's still some chances here, but he's very low on time. And I could even say Black's better coordinated, should I say here, because he's very well centralised at the moment.
This is like the perfect example of a counter-attack. Everything has not worked out for Praggnanandhaa, and now Black is just ready to kind of coordinate on the light squares. But there is one trick in the position. One must not forget sleeping bishops, and that little bishop on b1 was threatening to skewer the queen and king.
And Pragg is using this white bishop right now. It's actually reminiscent of the blunder we saw with Magnus Carlsen against Jordan van Foreest yesterday, where there was a sleeping bishop and suddenly it zoomed up the board and won the game. But, of course, that check met by a king move and a result in the other game.
Yeah, it is a draw game too. It was looking good for Magnus at some point there. The bar was liking it, but Erik Hansen with a white piece saves a draw in that game. Magnus still up by 1 point before Game 3 starts. He is stopping to take a look at what's happening in Pragg's game, and Magnus will probably be happy to see this position. Do you think Pragg will be losing this?
Yes. Unfortunately, the threats have run dry. No more attack for white. Black's pieces, as Simon mentioned, is that keyword, centralised. All of Black's pieces actually protect each other. They control all the entry squares for white's pieces, and no more attack. Black is simply 2 pawns up. And the threats continue. The white queen kicked back even further.
Yeah,
it's quite cruel chess, isn't it? I mean, I was just thinking Magnus is looking at Pragg and he's wishing him to lose, as you do. And I think I've been there before as well, that you're wishing people to lose their game because, you know, you want to win the tournament. And it's quite, you know, seems a bit strange sometimes, hoping someone's going to lose.
Yeah, I never wish my opponents...
Never?
Or my rivals to lose. No, because I feel like it's bad karma. And, OK, Pragg only has 15 seconds left on the clock. He has to make a move. He has to move the queen, and the queen must protect the rook. OK, so he drops back to the first row.
Yeah, and we saw there Pragg shaking his head, continuing to shake his head there, head in his hands as well. It's the clock. It's the clock. If he had 1 more minute earlier, he would have found that key move. The attack would have continued. but now the
And,
connection broken between white queen and rook.
Yeah, and that bishop, it's on the long diagonal. It's a beautiful piece. And, oh, this is a killer blow from Duda. That rook is unfortunately untouchable. Knight takes rook, allows knight takes knight, and then, unfortunately, the king and queen are forked. But there's no way to defend against rook takes pawn. It is game over.
Yeah, winning in style, Duda. The white king running away desperately, but now the black rook can take everything. Taking a pawn with check, taking the knight as well, and Pragg resigns.
Wow. That means he is down by 2 points in this match against Jan Christoph Duda. What a day Duda is having, playing some fantastic chess, and he will now only need a draw in game 3 to win this match.